Sometimes, I lie awake at night afraid of death. Quite the not-so-subtle opening, but it's true. I can't help but stare at my ceiling, wondering what I'm fighting for, or why I'm fighting to begin with. At this point, I even ended up getting out of bed in the middle of the night just to call one of my family members from across the state. I don't care, I needed someone, anyone to talk to. Your thoughts can drive you to doing nutty things sometimes, if that's even a good word to use. What I had found made me think, though. A little too hard. Not just about my life crisis, but so many other things. I don't know whether to be scared or disgusted. I'm in my late 40s and I like to go urban exploring on a weekly basis. I own a nifty little Facebook page where I share my findings, travels, etc. One place I really wanted to visit but I had to save up for was Wimstone, Warwickshire. The original location for the Teletubbies show set. I'm not the biggest fan of the characters or how they act, but I did think their designs and the overall setting was quite charming. I know that the set is practically just a small body of water with unmown grass now, all because the old owner got tired of tourists plaguing the place, but it's nice to look back on history. The visit was partially my cousin's ideas. This may come as sudden information, but he used to work in the production crew for the show. He told me a thing or two about his experiences working there, such as when the program ended in 2001, the costumes worn by the actors were stolen, and all they had left was new. The vacuum cleaner, that resulted in the main characters having to be remade from the ground up for the 2015 reboot. This is important, please keep this in mind for later. Anyways, I managed to get plane tickets to England after so much saving up. I was really excited to arrive, and get a little townhouse to dwell in. Sure, there was a crying baby screeching in my ear, but it was worth it to get here. When I made it to the location, it was as you'd expect, a small, circular pond, accompanied by St. Augustine grass upon numerous hills. Beautiful. I just wanted to lie down and stare at the cloudy sky. That's when I spotted something off in the distance. A trailer, hidden within the trees surrounding the area. Strange. Maybe it belonged to someone in the production crew. I went over to where it was, cracking twigs and breaking leaves with each step, until I finally approached the trailer. The smell was absolutely foul, and it almost made me not want to go in, but then I realized, it's probably been sitting there for decades. Of course it would smell like year-old kimchi. I stepped in, and while it was very moldy, dusty, and dimly lit in most of the area, I noticed a small rack of standard VHS tapes, all labeled, stacked like Kenya blocks. They looked old as dirt, but I still wondered if they had worked, would indeed make for some interesting souvenirs. I ended up taking them with me back to my rental townhouse after exploring for a bit more, taking pictures and whatnot. Cut to now. 2 weeks later, I skimmed through some of the tapes with the help of an old basement Panasonic. Most of them consisted of various tests, reels, early recordings, bloopers, what you'd expect. Upon further scanning, however, some had no labels, most were empty, with the exception of one. No markings. No warning, right off the bat. I stuck the tape into the slot and waited. Jittery startup, but the film eventually showed up after a short wait. Up came the usual setting for a Teletubbies episode, except the grass was untrimmed, meaning that this would have been shot sometime after the show ended. Shots of the Tubbies' home appeared on screen as the sound of birds tweeting filled my TV's speakers. Devoid of music, yet delightful. That is, until what followed straight after. The automatic doors of the Teletubbies' home opened up, and out came Tinky Winky. Slowly limping outside as if he broken his femur. Hobbling, he let out weird, straining grunts. The strangest part about his form was that the face appeared creased with age. Not very detailed wrinkles, like if they were carved in, but instead drawn on with a marker, or Sharpie. He lamely ambled up a hill, groaning as he did so, before eventually falling on his bottom and looking up at the sky. Cut to his face, despondent, somewhat forlorn. He likely was not happy with living, or himself. It reminded me of how I was in my past, more particularly my late 30s. That's when the view switched to a shot of the sun. You know how the sun has a baby face stamped on it with After Effects in the actual show? Well, here, the sun's features were that of a mature woman. I'm positive she wasn't the original actor for that baby based on my research, and the stories my cousin had shared. Tinky Winky sighed and whimpered, before gazing back at the sun. The sun baby, or in this case, sun women, spoke. It was slightly echoed, but,
"Poor thing. You're frightened, aren't you?"
Tinky Winky nods.
"You're afraid of what will come next, are you?"
Tinky Winky sniffs, realizing how long it took for him to simply walk up a hill. The sheer speed of his hike made him long to regress, or go back in time to be young again.
"I understand how you feel, my dear. You could pass on in the next year, day, or even minute, but I can assure you, your life was not created in vain. You were put on this precious earth to make people laugh, and cry, tears hope."
Tinky Winky's eyes widened slightly. Past scenes from the show involving Tinky Winky and his friends began to fade into view in various transparent shots as the sun spoke.
"Look around you. If your life was in vain, you wouldn't have been given these gorgeous fields, or this entertaining little home of yours, or your friends. Think of them."
Tears seemed to flow down Tinky Winky's eyes, presumably from eye drops given behind the scenes. The sun sighed gently.
"My child, live your life to your very fullest. That's what I did, up until I was 2.
Tinky Winky's belly vision thingamajig came on, and static erupted from it. Startled, he'd shift down to his belly, the camera zooming into the fuzzy screen. What transpired was real security footage, something I never expected, and don't ever want to see again. A large ballroom, for an alleged religious event, with an unsupervised toddler running all over the place. Certain props were meticulously decorated around the area, like small crosses, an offering box, items to keep the offering table packed. Stuff that would probably be found at a party like this. The child seemed happy and carefree, until her dress met a candle. The adults around her focused on their own conversations, up until she started screaming when she was fully engulfed the flames. By the time they were jumping in to help her, it was too late. As her panicking caused her to run into a table, causing bottles of alcohol to topple over and pour on her, causing her to burn more, her skin burned up, and the smoke detector began to go off. The fire quickly spread, with one lady in particular screaming and cried her lungs out. The most out of anyone involved. The footage then cut to static and zoomed out Tinky Winky's stomach. A moment of silence came about, with Tinky Winky and the sun sharing a stare. The purple Teletubby then sigh, and lie on his back, looking up at the sky with a tired look.
"Now you know the true answer. It's real importance."
Tinky Winky slowly shut his eyes, and his movement creased. The camera transitioned to a side view of him laying against the soft grass. The other Teletubbies, Beanpsy, Lala, and Po, limped toward him, and inspected the lifeless body. They all collapsed to their knees, with Po rattling the elder, desperate for him to awaken. Soft whimpers filled the air. Quiet cries. As the Teletubbies mourned over the loss of their precious friend, the sun's voice could be heard. One last note.
"Your next life will be great. You'll grow, and find some new friends, I'm sure of it. I love you. Rest in peace."
With that, the video distorted, and the sun's dialogue cut off there. I was terrified with what I had just watched, and I couldn't help but put my head in my hands. A clatter shot out from my VHS player, the tape rapidly unraveled, stripping itself apart to the point of ruin. I tried to save it, to show the authorities what I had discovered. But I was too late, despite my self-loathing for failing to get the tape out in time. I guess it made sense, with how old and obviously damaged it was from the beginning. I had so many questions nailing through my brain at once. None of it made sense to me. Was there meant to be some sort of lesson? Who'd leave it in a trailer of all places? Even if I can't get a straight answer, I will say at least one good thing came out of it. I felt motivated to hug my mom and pop more than I usually would.